Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our spiritual sojourn. So happy you're with us again today. Hi, Tom. How's it going?
Hi, Laurie. It's going pretty well. How about you?
Good. I can't complain. Well, I could, but it wouldn't do any good. The universe would just laugh at me.
I'll listen to you complain all day, Laurie.
That's okay. Life is good. So last week we had Kendara on talking about manifestation, and she's a master at it and teaches it very well. But I thought today spirits kind of guided us to have a discussion about that and how that works with us in our lives and how we feel about and use manifestation, or do we? So I would say that I understand what Kendara is talking about. I've worked with her in the past, and sometimes it works for me and sometimes it doesn't. Honestly, to me, I manifest what I would say unintentionally sometimes without really doing all the things she talked about. I will have a thought, and the next thing I know, something's manifested. Other things that I'd really like to manifest, crickets in the night.
Yeah.
What's your experience?
Well, and I've been kind of getting some ideas all week long about this, and I do have some strong opinions. So let's start from my own experience. What I think I have learned about manifestation is it is a skill. It's something that you can do. Um, if it's an optional thing in your life, you can absolutely affect it if it is congruent with your life plan. So in the case of, let's say, I love to use this example because I've been always been a fan of Michael Jordan, but I always say I want to be Michael Jordan. Why can't, if I can manifest anything, why can't I be Michael Jordan? And there are a number of logistical reasons, but one of the most important ones is it's not on my life path. I have things that I have agreed to do, lessons I have agreed to learn, and if I went and spent all my time becoming the next Michael Jordan, it would take me off of that path. That's first and foremost. And I think the other example that comes to mind there is winning the lottery. So we love to, as people with intuition, we love to joke around about why don't we have all the winning lotto numbers? And part of the answer to that is getting winning lotto numbers and winning the lottery would probably take you off of your life path. It would certainly give you a sidetrack where you would slow down and you might not accomplish everything you set out to do in this life if you were to stay on your life path. So those are two really good examples of the prime directive, which is stay on your life path. Outside of that, you can manifest some things that as long as they are still within your lessons. So what do you think about that, Laurie? Does that match your understanding?
Sort of. I think that I think that we all manifest all the time, and we just don't recognize it for the most part.
Mhm.
And so, because it's who we are, it's as spirits in this physical body, it's what we do. We're manifesting our reality, we're manifesting our lives as we move forward. Whatever path we're on, we're manifesting that, I think, every second. But I think we don't think of it that way. So manifesting to me always seems like it's something separate from that. And what I'm starting to realize is perhaps for me, it's focusing more on how I'm manifesting every second of my life and being grateful for that,
Mm.
no matter what that is. I think the other thing I've always thought is manifesting is always about manifesting something that's good and something I want. And I'm coming to realize that's not always the case either. I think there are moments where I've manifested something that perhaps wasn't the most ideal, and yet it had the most impact on me in terms of my life, my moving forward, things I needed to learn or experience. And then looking back on it, it's like, oh, now I know why that happened,
Mhm.
why that was painful or why I had to live through something like that, because look what I've gained as a result of that.
Mhm.
So I think my idea and for myself, my thoughts about what I think manifesting is shifting. I mean, I'm clearly really good at manifesting jobs when I was looking for them. I would have a job, and if that was the job I really wanted, I got it. And I would visualize it and I would feel it, and I acted as if I was already starting that job. Same with buying a home or the condo I live in now. I knew it was the right place, and I manifested it because I totally, with every being, every fiber in my being, believed it and knew that I was going to be able to move in and saw myself moving in. I think with other things that my ego decides it wants doesn't manifest because I don't think I pay attention. I don't focus in the same way. And I think what Kendara was talking about was you focus on something and you feel it as if it's already occurring. And
Yes.
what I'm realizing when I'm asking for something to manifest, I don't have those intense congruent feelings, I think is what I'm realizing in myself.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
It does. And I think the key point out of all of that is that bit about the emotion and feeling like you've already received
Yeah.
it. Now, I do have in my own personal life, without going into grave detail, many years ago when I first started trying to manifest, I did that approach and I did everything by the book and I felt as though I had already received it and it did not happen.
Mhm.
And, you know, fast forward all these years, I can say, okay, that goes back to the prime directive. Having that would have taken me off of my life path. And so you do have to, it doesn't always work, even if you do all those steps correctly. But the emotion and the feeling as though you've already achieved or received, that
Mhm.
is super important.
Right. The other thing I'm realizing in my life is gratitude, and Kandar also emphasized that I'm finding that when I am consciously grateful every day and do a kind of a gratitude prayer or meditation every day, that I have the manifestations that I am wanting or that
Mhm,
I'm putting out there. And part of it for me is that being grateful for what I've already manifested and
mhm,
saying thank you, and being grateful for everything. Not only when I think of manifesting, a lot of times I think of it in terms of money or support, that sort of thing, but I've expanded my thoughts about that. And so I am incredibly grateful for the people in my life that I've manifested suddenly and attracted into my life at this point. So I'm feeling like gratitude is another big piece that I may have been negligent in acknowledging when I've tried to manifest in the past.
mhm. I think we can all relate to that. We could all do a little more of that. And when
Yeah.
you hear someone like Kendara speak about that, you say, oh, that's right. I really should focus on that more.
Well, a point in when I first retired from my job and COVID hit and Awkwardly Zen started, I had wanted to do a podcast. Well, I had no idea how to do that. So, in the course of joining this meetup, I met my friend Tim, who I immediately asked if he'd do a podcast with me. He said yes. And so we started a podcast. Same thing with this one. Spirit said, you need to do this YouTube podcast. And I'm like, I don't have a clue how to do that. And you showed up and said, oh, I'll do it with you. So for me, it's like I'm very grateful that you both have shown up and that the universe helped say, okay, do this, and we're going to send you somebody who's going to help you be able to do it.
Mhm.
To me, that's manifesting, even though
Yes.
I didn't think of it that way at the time.
Right. If I can call back to a Bugs Bunny cartoon, there's one where it's shortcut to grandma's house, and he turns and he starts running and runs right into the door. When it's in line with your life path and you manifest something, it's like shortcut to grandma's house. You start to go, and all of a sudden it just happens.
Yeah.
That's when you know you're on your life path.
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
Yes. Yeah.
so I also let me do another callback to Star Trek. I'm a big fan of everything we need to know in our life. can learn from Star Trek. There's a specific episode. Hang with me, Laurie. Hang with me. There's a specific episode of the original series where they're on some sort of a planet, and every thought that they have turns into an action and turns
Mhm.
into a reality. And I believe they were trying to teach us about manifestation. And in that episode, there are both really good, wonderful things that happen and some terrible, horrible things that happen. And Kirk finds his academy nemesis shows up, and they just fight until there's nothing left of each other. And that was something that he manifested because he was thinking about it. So you can spend your time manifesting things that are just going to take you down the wrong road, or you can really think about what your life path is and try and manifest things that are in line with that. And then they'll happen immediately. So those two examples come to mind for me as something that I've always thought you choose carefully. Choose carefully.
Well, and it's as you're saying that, what comes to mind for me is two things. One, when we're in the non-physical, when we're in the soul world, we manifest instantly, just like you were talking about. We think it appears, we create it immediately. It's a little harder in this 3D world. And so I think that it kind of reminds me that yes, we are manifesting all the time, and some will call good, and some will say not so good. And as a soul, we're always going to have the experience that we need to have, no matter how our egos decide to label it. The other thing that comes to mind is so all the more reason for me to really get out of my own way with mind and ego and allow soul to really run the show, so to speak, and help me manifest what's important because the soul knows that. And as a master at manifesting, where mind and ego aren't. They're too caught up in I want, I want, I want, as opposed to maybe the soul perspective of okay, this will be helpful to have now, or this will be helpful to learn now, or this will be helpful in some way on my path to experience this. So it's helping me think through, get out of my head and allow my soul to really do the manifesting, which is where I think it really comes from anyway.
Mhm. An interesting idea that just popped into my head, and I'll credit bigger forces than I for giving me this thought. Sometimes when we manifest, we want it so immediately that we want to take the next exit and have it there. And the example that popped into my head was, let's say you're wanting to stop along the highway for a rest stop, and the next one might be a very dark, dangerous place where you would pull over, and things might not work out your way if you run into the wrong people or the wrong situation, or your car gets stuck, or who knows what. You can make a list. But if you pick the right one, you will be in a much better situation. So manifesting and an opportunity that shows up that lines up with that manifestation isn't necessarily the next one. It might be the one after that or the one after that. You want the greatest good out of what you're trying to get. It isn't the next good. There might be a better good that shows up down the road. That's a hard one for all of us, I believe.
And I think for me, it harkens to having patience and living in this world with Amazon where everything's the next day delivery.
Yeah,
I think my expectation is when I say, okay, I want to manifest that, in my mind, that means in the next day or two.
right?
And you're right. I think that it doesn't always appear that way. I think that was the whole idea behind when Kendara was talking about how you state clearly what you want, you feel it, you feel that connection, and then you release it, you let it go, and then you're patient because things will come to you at the exact right moment. As you were saying, that's the exact right thing that we need.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the time that occurs between the initial, I want this, I'm going to manifest it, and it actually showing up, that's where you do have to reinforce that this is what I am trying to bring to my life. You do have to bring in the gratitude, and you have to be patient. And it's a horrible struggle because, as I mentioned in the last video, it's a constant struggle between if this is meant to happen, it's going to happen, and that's my fate. And God helps he who helps himself. I better get on this or it's never going to happen. And most of us, I think, go back and forth on that all the time. I know that's my life. So with manifestation, you do have to release it, but you have to stay with it a little bit. You do have to remember to continue to feel it and
Mhm.
continue to pass on the gratitude and just have it in mind all the time.
Right.
I think
And
that, yeah, that's a summary. Go ahead, Laurie.
I was thinking that that's that, yes, it's that bridging the two, it's bringing those two together and realizing that it's the action plan is that we continue to hold it in consciousness, hold that feeling, continue to visualize it as we put it out there, and then also practice that gratitude and releasing each time. But you're right, I think that that step is that the God helps those who help themselves kind of attitude is us being conscious of it, holding that and feeling it each time, maybe daily, and then releasing it back out to the universe. And then for me, trusting that I will receive whatever's highest and best good, and that it may not be or look exactly like I think it should or the way I want it to be. That I also have to be open to whatever the universe is going to send me and pay attention to that because I might miss it if I'm looking for something very specific.
Mhm.
Does that make
You,
sense?
you do still have to be specific, but it might get customized to so that you
Exactly.
get this, but it also fits in your life path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And then recognizing that when it shows up. So, exactly. And that's what I'm not the most patient person. So apparently my soul brought that in this lifetime for me to like get better at it. And I want it all to be delivered tomorrow in a
Right.
nice little tied up with a nice little bow. And
Yep.
that's just not how it happens.
And the answer always is patience. And none of us ever seem to have enough of that, but that is constantly part of the equation.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm not even sure how I would manifest patience. I think I would just forever and always be
Oh,
waiting
don't ask for that
because
one. You'll get it.
I
You'll
would
get it.
never get
Oh,
it.
yes, you'll get it. Um, I have a couple more points that come to mind that I want to make. And I touched on both, I think both of these with Kendara, but I want to expand on them here. One of them is if you don't get what you want, we tend to beat ourselves up and think we did something wrong.
Yeah.
And that is a huge, uh, I wouldn't call it a flaw, but it's a huge pitfall in the process that you could fall into if you let that get inside your mind. And I have done that. And I bet we've all done that at some point. You find out about this manifestation thing and you think, boy, I should really do that. And then it doesn't work. And you go, well, that's just a bunch of nothing. I'm not going to waste my time on that again. And so there are all the reasons we've already discussed about why things may not happen, but don't blame yourself. It is
Yeah.
not part of it. One of the, I'm not going to be real specific here, but there's a recording that many of us have listened to where the tone of voice of the person who is reading to us makes it sound like we make a lot of mistakes. And I want to caution everybody, if you're hearing that in a recording about manifestation, you need to temper that just a little bit. And if you know, you know, and if you don't know, I hope you don't run into that. And that's really, I don't want to say any more than that. So that's a big part of it. It isn't your fault for all the reasons we've already discussed, and just don't beat yourself up about it if it doesn't happen.
Right. And I think that's a good point. It's not allowing mind and ego to step in and then practice that self-blame or I can't do anything right or what was I thinking, that sort of thing. Because
Mhm.
I think humans are really good at that and our minds tend to move in that direction anyway. So I think that's a good reminder to release it, approach it from a different perspective, and then release it again and see what unfolds. But I think self-blaming is something that we as humans are pretty prone to do anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It is, and it's really dangerous in this setting because you're
Yes.
dealing with things that you don't fully understand yet, and you're trying new things and they don't work. It's got to be my fault because I don't have all the information and knowledge that I need. But that's really
Exactly.
not necessarily the case. We're born with
Exactly.
it. We need a little better understanding of how to work within it,
Mhm.
but it just doesn't serve anybody to blame ourselves.
Right. Yes. And I would encourage folks in those moments to sit quietly and really pay attention and ask themselves to remember what have you actually manifested for yourself that maybe you didn't think of in that way,
Hmm.
you know, because everyone I'm sure can come up with something that they thought about that they wanted, and then suddenly something like that showed up. And
Hmm.
so to really reinforce that, okay, we do this naturally. And when we want something very specific, we have to do it with a little more intention behind it.
Hmm.
Yeah. But it's tricky. It is. And I've spent a lifetime back and forth with manifesting and seeing it as something that, yes, I can definitely do. And then other times thinking, "Ugh, I can't do that at all."
Yeah.
What was I thinking?
Sometimes it just feels like a waste of time, but
Mhm.
the answer is not necessarily no. The answer could be no, not right now.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Or refine your request because perhaps the way you've requested it, or I put it into words, maybe tweak it a bit and be a little more specific about what it is, that you're requesting from the universe.
Hmm.
And as Kendara said, you don't then just keep taking it back and worrying about it. You release it. You hold it in your consciousness, but you don't worry it. You don't think about it and try to tweak it or keep changing it, which is a lot of times what I will do. Um, you simply hold it in your consciousness and release it to the universe, trusting that it's
Yeah.
going to work
So,
out.
and this was the last point I wanted to make, which is here's a good way to do that, which is there's a very fine line between meditation and hypnosis. So if you've ever tried self-hypnosis and you've let the most common one is weight loss. So at some point you've probably many of us have tried to do self-hypnosis weight loss tapes or recordings, whatever they were.
Mhm.
That is a version of you're releasing it, but you're also keeping it in memory. And you're going to practice that every night before I go to bed. I'm going to go to sleep to that self-hypnosis tape. Well, that's a way of keeping it in your conscious and subconscious mind every day without worrying about it, but keeping the message going live out there every day.
Yes.
And if so, let's say you have something, you want a little red Corvette, but there's no self-hypnosis tape to get a little red Corvette. You can develop your own little list that you look at before bed every night, or you can make your own recording for that matter, whatever you choose to do, but something that keeps it alive every night or every day without worrying about it, without attaching the negative emotions to it. So I think we can do some special little additional tricks for our own self to hold it, but not overdo it and not make it a negative thing.
Right. And Kendara would say a vision board would be that.
She would, yes. And that's not my style, but that's her style. And that may be your
Yeah.
style as well. And if that is, that's the way to go. For me, that wouldn't work, but something else would work. And
Mhm.
so, there are no rules.
Well, and I think that's the point. You find the way that works best for you
Yeah.
and then use that. Mantras work well for me, so I will use that. And so yes, it's finding what works.
Yes.
Absolutely. And
What
vision boards for a lot of people are very powerful.
they are.
Yeah.
And so if that means that you put it in front of you every day, or if you go into a meditation, sort of a trance state, and imagine it and talk about it in your own mind every day, whatever works for you, as long as it's positive, is a good way to go. So be
Exactly.
creative and get her done, but
Yeah.
be creative and keep it
Yes.
positive. Yep.
Yes. I agree totally.
Okay.
This has been a great discussion. Thank you, Tom.
It has, and these are things that I have co- collected over the years with my own experience, and I'd like to hear everyone else's experience too.
Yeah.
So if you have an experience where maybe you've tried manifestation and it didn't work, we'd love to hear about that. Better yet, if you have a success story and you did something out of the ordinary to get your goal, we'd really love to hear about that. So that would be wonderful. So if this has helped you, that's terrific. Please smash that like button if it did help you. If you have a friend that would benefit from these topics, We'd love it if you would share this with them. And anyone who would like to subscribe, if you do that, set your notifications to all. You will always be notified when we publish a new video. And lastly, if you'd like to get a hold of either Laurie or Tom, or Laurie and Tom, you can find us at ourspiritualsojourn@gmail.com. And
Thank you,
with
Tom.
that, thanks, Laurie. I've enjoyed the discussion.
Me too. Thank you so much. See you next time.
See you next time.